An alien took me to the past. He showed me how Anunnaki they truly created Egypt, and what he revealed about the pyramids will leave you speechless. It's not about blocks of stone, it's about an instruction manual from another civilization. We were robbed. The history we learned in school is a smoke OKC screen to hide the truth that the pyramids were not built for the dead, but for activate the living. You are about to discover the true function of these impossible structures, why they were built, and what really happens to you when you get close to them. The question is, what would you do if you discovered that humanity's most powerful knowledge had been hidden in plain sight? Before we dive deeper, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Grab yourself a warm drink, maybe a cup of tea or just some water, and sit back as we begin this journey together. The ebook, Reconnecting with Your Divine Essence, is for those who are ready to go further because what I'm about to reveal will completely change your understanding of who you are and where we really came from. How did it all begin, Dennis? Reeves was 58 years old and absolutely convinced that he had wasted his entire life. Not because the work was bad, but because he had dedicated 40 years to something he could never prove Egyptology. He earned his PhD at a young age of 26, spent 20 years working at prestigious universities and museums, publishing articles, giving lectures, and it all crumbled when he began to question the official narrative. Pyramids are not tombs. He wrote this, published it in an academic journal with solid evidence. Astronomical alignments impossible to be accidental. The complete absence of original mummies in the main pyramids. Hieroglyphic texts that never mentioned burial, but spoke of transformation, rebirth, ascension. The Academy systematically ridiculed him. Colleagues who respected him turned their backs on him. Invitations to conferences dried up, and eventually he lost his position at the university. Forced into unofficial but effective early retirement, Denny, as his few remaining friends called him, spent the last 8 years in Tempe, Arizona, far from the academic world that had rejected him, living on a modest pension and doing sporadic online consulting, but never giving up on his fundamental conviction. There is more there than they say, much more. Pyramids hold secrets that humanity needs but has forgotten. The cruel irony that silently gnawed at him was that in his entire life dedicated to studying Egypt, he had never physically visited the country, not for lack of desire but due to circumstance. A poor family without resources when young, and then always another more urgent expense, children in university, a mortgage, and now retired with a tight budget. Egypt remained an unfulfilled dream. Thousands of photos, studied maps, memorized texts, translated. But he had never felt the desert sand beneath his feet, never touched the impossible megalithic blocks of chaos. And this tormented him, an Egyptologist who had never set foot in Egypt, like a doctor who had never seen a patient. Thursday night, late November. Tempe still warm, even at night. Dennis was in a small room of his modest house alone because his wife was visiting their daughter in Phoenix. The television on a new documentary about pyramids that some algorithm had recommended, and he watched with growing frustration, turning to anger. The same lies repeated for 40 years. Pharaonic tombs, slaves building sand ramps, all theories that make no mathematical or logistical sense, but academia repeats like a mantra because alternatives are too frightening. The documentary showed an expert pointing to the king's chamber. This granite sarcophagus was where Pharaoh Khufu was buried. And Dennis shouted at the television, "No, it wasn't. It never was. They never found a body there. The sarcophagus is the wrong size. It has no inscriptions. It doesn't follow the pattern of any real Egyptian burial. And you know this, but you lie because the truth would destroy your career like it destroyed mine." He slammed the television shut, the remote hitting the table, and sat in the dark, breathing heavily, exhausted with anger, exhausted from being ignored, exhausted from knowing a truth that nobody wanted to hear. And then the light appeared, not from the television, in which was off, not from a lamp because there was no switch on, but from nowhere in the corner of the room near the bookshelf full of books about Egypt, pale blue and growing. And Dennis turned with his heart racing. His first thought was a heart attack or stroke, a stress hallucination. But the light was too solid, too real, and there was form materializing within it. Tall, strange building itself, molecule by molecule. A classic alien exactly as the movie showed it, but somehow more realistic, less caricatured. Smooth gray skin, a proportionally large but not grotesque head, huge black eyes with a depth that seemed infinite, and Dennis froze in his seat, his academic mind trying to process the impossibility. But then a voice came not in sound, but directly into his head, telepathic, clear, as if speaking aloud but without ears involved, and said, Dennis Reeves, you are right about everything. Pyramids are not tombs. Academia hides the truth because the truth would liberate humanity. And I can show you the real Egypt. Not photos and theories, but experience. See what it was like when it was functional. Understand the purpose that was erased from official records. Dennis processed it. Shock giving way to trained skepticism, elaborate hallucination, stress finally shattering sanity. But he said aloud nonetheless, if you are real, if I am not crazy, then why appear to me a rejected, failed Egyptologist whom nobody takes seriously? The alien replied telepathically, because you maintain truth even when the cost was high. Academia offers rewards for conformity. You chose integrity over comfort. That is rare. And because you are ready, 40 years of study, prepare the mind. All that is lacking is direct experience. And I can offer that. I can take you there. Not a physical body, but consciousness. A projection that is more real than a tourist visit, because you will see through time. Egypt as it was when the Anunnaki still taught directly. Anunnaki, Dennis repeated a word he knew from Sumerian studies, but had never deeply connected with Egypt. Are you saying that they, the ancient visitors, created Egyptian civilization? Alien nodded. That strangely human gesture. Sumeria came first in an initial experiment, but after the flood destroyed much, the Anunnaki migrated a select group to the Nile Valley, choosing the location because it was a natural energy portal, an intersection of turic lines with perfect stellar alignment. And they built Egypt not as a common civilization, but as a permanent school of mysteries. Each structure has a specific purpose in awakening human consciousness. The pyramids are not tombs, they are technology. The Sphinx is not a statue, it is a guardian of sealed knowledge. The Nile is not just a river, it is a tool for energetic purification. Everything was designed, nothing accidental. Dennis had felt years of frustration of being called crazy, of losing his career for insisting there was a greater purpose. And now this impossible creature was confirming exactly what he had always suspected. And he asked in a trembling voice, can you prove it? Can you show me in a way that isn't just words? The alien replied, I can do more than show you. I can take you there. A consciousness projected through time and space. You will experience ancient Egypt when the pyramids still function, when temples pulsed with energy, when real initiates underwent transformations that texts describe but no one else understands. And then, if you want, I'll take you to present-day Egypt, not touristically, but energetically, to feel what visitors feel without understanding. Chills déjà vu, subtle activations that happen even when structures are partially deactivated. And about you, Dennis asked, who are you? Where do you come from? Why do you care about Egypt and me? Alien replied. I am an observer of the same stellar origin as the Anunnaki, although a different mission. They created and departed. We document and occasionally facilitate for those who are ready. And Egypt fascinates me because it was their masterpiece, a complete code of ascension built in stone to survive millennia of human amnesia. And you, Dennis, spent your whole life studying in code without being able to fully decipher it. Now I can give you the key to translation, direct experience, and with that your mission changes from failure to purpose. You will no longer be a rejected Egyptologist, but a true witness that academia denies. Dennis looked around the room. Books about Egypt piled everywhere, notes from decades ago, photos of structures he had never seen in person, and thought about 40 years about a career destroyed by telling the truth about a dream of visiting Egypt that never came true due to lack of money. And now an alien offering not just a visit, but a complete understanding, an experience that a rich tourist would never have because it would be internal, real transformative. And he said, his voice firm, despite trembling hands, "Show me. Take me there. I want to see what it really was, what it really is. I want to understand why I dedicated my whole life to this without ever being able to prove anything." The alien approached his movements, almost floating and smooth, and said, "You will see Egypt in three layers. First, when the Anunnaki had just finished building the structures, new and completely functional. Second, during Egypt's golden age, when initiated pharaohs used technology correctly. Third, today, damaged structures, but still energetically active. You will understand the connection. You will feel it in your body, not just know it in your mind. And when you return here, you will no longer be the same man. Activation will happen because Egypt recognizes its own. And you have already been there, Dennis, in other lives, as a scribe, as a priest. Studying is not new learning, but remembering. Ready." Dennis nodded, and the alien touched his forehead with a long, cold finger, and the room disappeared. Tempe disappeared. Arizona disappeared. And Dennis was falling through space and time simultaneously. Absolute vertigo mixed with anticipation. And when the sensation stabilized, he was where he immediately recognized, even though he had never seen it personally, the Nile Valley millennia ago and pyramids, my God, the pyramids. But not as photos showed, worn and yellowed. These were new, pure white limestone claddings shining under the sun like giant mirrors. And the top, Dennis saw and almost cried, a solid gold top. Not a lost capstone, but present, reflecting sunlight like a cosmic beacon. And all around, not empty desert, but vegetation, gardens, canals, and people. But not just Egyptians, others taller, different proportions moving among humans with natural authority. And Dennis understood Anunnaki. He was seeing them, the builders, the teachers, and he was finally going to understand why pyramids existed and what they really did. Dennis was seeing from a perspective that wasn't exactly his own. Floating above the Giza plateau, but millennia in the past, and pyramids were under construction, but not in the way documentaries showed them, without impossible sand ramps or thousands of slaves pulling ropes. There was technology devices he couldn't name, but saw working 50-ton limestone blocks floating, literally floating, suspended by energy fields visible as distortions in the air, and Anunnaki operating devices tall about 2.5 feet and pale, golden skin, large eyes, but not as large as Gray's beside him, and they moved blocks with millimeter precision, using something that looked like crystals emitting specific frequencies. The alien narrated telepathically while Dennis watched in astonishment. Levitation through sound. Specific frequencies cancel gravity locally. The Anunnaki mastered this ages ago. For them, moving giant stone is as simple as carrying a light box. And construction didn't take 20 years, as Egyptologists calculate. It took 18 months of concentrated work. Speed incomprehensible to humans, but routine for their technology. And each block was placed not arbitrarily, but following precise sacred geometry, mathematical proportions that create resonance with specific cosmic frequencies. Why, Dennis asked, not aloud, but in the thought the alien received. Why build something so massive, so precise? And the vision shifted, accelerated forward in time. Complete pyramids now gleaming white cladding under the midday sun. The gold capstone on top reflecting light like a second sun. And Dennis saw from above the complete layout. Three pyramids aligned not randomly, but perfectly, mirroring Orion's belt. And the alien explained, Ion is their stellar home, or one of them. And alignment is not nostalgic homage, it's an antenna. Pyramids receive energy from that specific stellar region, especially during solstices and equinoxes, when alignment is perfect and energy is channeled downwards through the structure. Vision then plunged in. Dennis being pulled inside the Great Pyramid, not through a modern tourist entrance, but through an original passage, and the interior was not empty and silent as photos showed. It was alive, literally vibrating a constant low sound like a deep hum. And the walls, my God, the walls were not dead stone, but subtly glowing. Hieroglyphs not just engraved, but luminous. And the corridors were not random passages, but a precise map. Every angle, every distance calculated to direct a specific energy flow. They arrived at the king's chamber, but it wasn't empty and cold. It was prepared. Torches lit not for illumination, but for ritual purposes in a granite sarcophagus, not a tomb, but a capsule. And there was a human inside, an Egyptian man of perhaps 30 years old, lying inside the sarcophagus, still alive. Eyes closed, but conscious, and around him 5 Anunnaki not physically doing anything. But Dennis felt an intense directed energy. And the alien explained, this one is an initiate chosen to become pharaoh. But before ruling, he needs to undergo activation. 3 days and 3 nights here, complete sensory isolation. The vibration of the pyramid penetrating every cell. And what happens is not mystical, it's biological. Latent DNA activates, dormant abilities emerge. Consciousness expands beyond normal limits. What happens specifically? Dennis asked, fascinated. And the alien showed him, not described, but showed him a vision plunging into the initiate's body at a cellular microscopic level. Dennis truly saw DNA, a familiar double helix, but with something more. Sequences that seemed inactive erased, and then the vibration of the pyramid, a specific frequency, 432 hertz, the alien informed him. And sequences began to switch on, literally lighting up like lights, and a cascading change occurred. The pineal gland in the center of the brain, calcified and dormant in most humans, began to pulsate, decalcifying, activating, and in the third eye the text mentioned was not a metaphor, but literal perception, expanding to frequencies beyond the normal spectrum. Vision returned to normal scale, still initiated in the sarcophagus, but visibly changing. Even from the outside, Dennis could see the energy field around him intensifying. And suddenly the initiated opened his eyes. But they were no longer ordinary human eyes. They literally shone golden, and he rose from the sarcophagus, not weak or confused, but powerful, his presence radiating. And the Anunnaki around nodded in approval, and the now pharaoh spoke not in ancient Egyptian, but Dennis understood through alien language. I see everything past, present, future. I see energy flowing through everything. I see you not as gods, but as elder brothers. I see my people, and I know how to guide them not through force, but through example, not through fear, but through elevation. Alien narrated that pharaohs were literally divine, not by birth, but by activation. They underwent a process that most humans could not endure: intense isolation and vibration for days. But those who emerged were permanently transformed, possessing abilities that humans would call supernatural, but were merely optimized biology. They ruled not as tyrants, but as teachers, keeping knowledge alive, gradually guiding the people toward elevation until invasions came. Pure bloodlines were lost. Knowledge was fragmented and eventually forgotten. Why not do this with everyone? Dennis asked. Why only the elite? Alien replied. Initially, in the first centuries after construction, they tried offering activation to any Egyptian who wanted it. But they discovered that most weren't ready. Their consciousness wasn't developed enough. The activation attempt failed, or worse, caused mental imbalance. Power without maturity is destructive. So they established a system of gradual initiation, preparatory temples, where humans learned ethics, self-control, compassion, and only after demonstrating character were they allowed into the pyramid. Protection not of knowledge, but of people who weren't ready for it. Vision shifted again, time advancing centuries, and Dennis saw change. Pyramids still there, but Anunnaki gone. Parties and Egyptians trying to maintain tradition but knowledge diluting. Generations passing original purpose, turning into ritual without comprehension, and then invaders, Persians, Greeks, Romans. Each wave destroying more knowledge, burning libraries, killing priests, and finally white cladding being removed used to build other structures. Stolen gold capstone melted down and pyramids becoming shells of what they were still energetically functional, but operating at a minimal fraction of their original capacity. And Dennis saw the modern era, tourists wandering around ignorantly taking photos without feeling or understanding what they were feeling. And the aliens showed something Dennis had never known. Some visitors, not all, but some, left different, not consciously, but energetically. Their auric field changed, their DNA beginning to activate even without a formal ritual because the structure still functions. The frequency still pulses, only much weaker. And these visitors returned home and their lives changed. Synchronicities increased. A gradual awakening began without ever understanding which pyramid had activated them. Why, Dennis asked, why build something so permanent? Why not teach directly and leave? Alien replied, because the Anunnaki knew they would eventually leave. Their project on Earth had a timeline, and they knew humanity would go through dark ages of forgetfulness. But they also knew that eventually it would awaken again. And when it awakened, it would need tools. And pyramids are the most permanent tools possible. Solid stone survives everything. Wars, earthquakes, millennia of neglect, and even damage, they still function patiently, waiting for humans to remember what they are and how to use them. So they still work now, Dennis asked. Today, people can enter and be activated. Alien confirmed. Yes. Although efficiency is only 20% of the original, the removed coding compromises energy. Channeling the missing capstone disrupts the entire circuit. But the intact structural core still resonates at 432 hertz, still amplifies intention, still activates the pineal gland of sensitive visitors, and more. All of Egypt was designed as a system, not just the pyramids, the Sphinx guards, sealed knowledge. The Nile energetically purifies. Temples along the river heal specific aspects of the soul. A complete journey through Egypt is a journey of transformation if done consciously. Show me, Dennis pleaded. Show me the rest. I want to understand the whole system. And the alien agreed. And the vision began to move, leaving Giza, following the Nile south. Then Dennis was going to see that Egypt was not a random collection of monuments, but a three-dimensional map of ascension. Each structure, a station on the way back home, a reminder of who humans truly were before they forgot. And he was finally going to understand, not intellectually, but experientially. And gratitude mixed with sadness overwhelmed him, because he had spent his whole life being ridiculed for being right. And now he had proof, but couldn't show it to the academy that had rejected him. He could only testify to those who were ready to listen. Vision moved Dennis through time again, going even further back than before, and he was now before the Sphinx, but not the worn-out version that photographs showed. This one was new, newly carved, and the alien narrated this was the first structure. 10 to 500 years before Christ, millennia before the pyramids, when the Anunnaki arrived and chose this plateau, marked their territory with a guardian, and the symbol is not random, Dennis. It is a map of the path that every human must take. Dennis observed the Sphinx intact, its nose perfect, not destroyed by Napoleonic cannons, as history claimed. In its face, he realized for the first time, truly seeing it was not the face of a specific pharaoh, as academics theorize, but a generic androgynous universal face representing the archetypal human. The alien explained that the lion's body represents the animal nature that everyone carries. Instinct, survival, ego, unfiltered, primitive emotions, unrefined brute force, the first evolutionary stage where most are trapped. The human face represents awakened consciousness, reason, compassion, self-mastery, the ability to transcend instinct through wisdom, the second stage that few reach, together. The alien continued. The Sphinx teaches a crucial lesson. Evolution is not about killing the inner animal. Repression never works. It's about taming it, integrating it, a lion consciously obeying a human instinct, serving the spirit instead of commanding it. When that happens, you become pharaoh of yourself, ruler of your own inner kingdom, and you are ready for the next stage entry into the pyramid final initiation. And between the pause, Dennis asked, is there really a hidden camera like Edgar Casey said? Alien confirmed, and vision plunged through stone as if it weren't solid, and there it was, a small but real chamber. Walls covered with what looked like metal but wasn't golden, but not ordinary gold. And on pedestals were objects, tablets, not of clay, but of metal, as well engraved with symbols that Dennis didn't recognize, not Egyptian hieroglyphs nor Sumerian cuneiform, but something earlier. And crystals, large, perfectly geometric, shining with their own light. What's written there, Dennis asked, fascinated, the alien replied. The complete history of Earth before the flood, civilizations that existed and were forgotten. Atlantis wasn't a myth, Dennis. It was real. An island in the Atlantic with technology rivaling the Anunnaki. But they self-destructed through war using power without wisdom. And when it sank 12,000 years ago, the Anunnaki who were observing decided to preserve knowledge for the next civilization to emerge. That's why there's a chamber here. Complete records coded technology star maps showing their origin. All energetically sealed, waiting for humanity to be ready. Why hasn't it been opened yet? Dennis asked, and the alien explained. The seal isn't physical, it's frequency-based. Attempts to open it with the wrong intentions or low consciousnesses fail automatically. Anunnaki technology repels negative energy. Only when the collective human consciousness reaches a minimum frequency will the seal dissolve on its own. Edgar Casey was right about the location and content, but wrong about the timing. He predicted the opening in the 1990s, but humanity wasn't ready yet. Now it's close, very close, probably in the next 5 to 10 years. Vision left the chamber, moved east, following the Nile. And Dennis saw the river not as a blue line on a map, but as a pulsating artery. And the alien said, the Anunnaki didn't choose Egypt just for the geometry of the plateau. They chose it for the river. The Nile is no ordinary river, Dennis. It was programmed by them. Technology buried along its banks. Giant crystals too deep for modern humans to find. And crystals program water with the intention of healing and purification. The memory of water is not pseudoscience, it's physics. Water retains vibrational information, and the entire Nile vibrates with the frequency of rebirth. And Dennis then saw a ritual, no longer a past vision, but a present one. A group of modern people, perhaps tourists or spiritual seekers, entering the Nile at a specific location near Luxor. The alien showed him what was happening, invisible to the naked eye. Water touching skin and the auric field immediately responding. Ancient energetic traumas. Some from this life, others from past lives, beginning to dissolve, literally dissolving like salt in water, and people crying not from sadness, but from liberation. Invisible burdens they had carried for decades or centuries being washed away. And when they came out, Dennis saw brighter auric fields, chakras that had been blocked spinning freely. A real, unimaginable transformation. Why does the water do this? Dennis asked. What's the mechanism? Alien explained. Its unique mineral composition. Natural colloidal gold. Gold nanoparticles suspended in the water from deposits upstream. Gold conducts electricity perfectly. When it enters the body through pores, it activates latent DNA. It also contains dissolved silicon, essentially quartz, and quartz amplifies intention. And most crucially, the Nile absorbs sunlight 350 days a year. The water literally becomes charged with photons. Drinking or immersing in it is like injecting light into the body, activating the pineal gland. And combined with Anunnaki crystalline programming, it creates a complete reset effect, like formatting a computer. Old patterns erased, a clean operating system ready for new programming. John the Baptist Dennis said, connecting the dots. Baptism in the Jordan River was an echo of this practice. Alien confirmed. Exactly. Christian baptism is a diluted version of the original Anunnaki baptism in the Nile. Water is not symbolic, it's technology, and the Jordan River that has similar properties, though less potent than the Nile, which is why John chose it there, knowing unconsciously ancestral memory guiding him. Vision continued following the Nile south, stopping at specific locations, and the alien narrated that each temple along the river corresponded to a specific healing stage. The Anunnaki designed a complete initiatory journey, not random, but sequential building upon each previous stage. Dennis saw the temples not as tourists see them, interesting ancient ruins, but as they were energetically each pulsing with a different frequency, a different color, a different purpose. The first temple of Isis in Philae, a small island surrounded by water. And the alien explained, Isis represents the divine feminine aspect, the cosmic mother magic in the original sense of manifestation through intention. This temple heals wounds of the feminine rejection, abuse, devaluation of intuition, collective trauma from millennia of patriarchy, suppressing feminine power. Men and women both carry this, and when they enter here, something is released. Dennis saw a group of modern women inside the temple, several crying intensely without knowing why, releasing pain that was not only from this life, but from an entire lineage. All the grandmothers, great G grandmothers, female ancestors who suffered in healing, happening through them backward and forward in time simultaneously. According to the second temple of Horus in Edfu, the largest preserved temple, and the alien said, Horus represents the all-seeing eye clarity, justice, protection. This temple heals spiritual blindness, victimization, lack of purpose, and activates the third eye. Dennis saw a man sitting in a specific corner of the temple, his closed, meditating, and suddenly opening them with an expression of shock, whispering to his companion, I saw it. I saw my entire life's mission in a flash. I know what I came here to do. The temple literally showed him that insight didn't come from thought, but from a sudden inner vision. The third eye temporarily activated by the frequency of the place. The third temple of Hathor in Dendera, famous for its zodiac-themed ceiling, was described by an alien as representing joy music, dance, and spiritual ecstasy that is not sexual but transcendent. This temple heals deep sadness, depression, and disconnection from sacred pleasure, activating all chakras simultaneously through sound and vibration. Dennis witnessed a group practicing tonal chanting inside the temple and the acoustics. My God, the acoustics. Each sound reverberating, multiplying, and amplifying, with participants laughing spontaneously, some dancing ecstasy without substances, just pure frequency. The alien added, Hathor teaches that spirituality is not suffering. It is higher vibration is love and laughter, not pain and sacrifice. The fourth temple of Osiris in Abydos, the most sacred of all. And the alien said Osiris represents death and rebirth, cycles eternity. This temple heals fear of death, attachment to the ego, resistance to change, activates the crown chakra connection with the divine source, visceral understanding of the immortality of the soul. Dennis saw a person lying in a specific location, a deep dark room inside the temple, an absolute peace on her face, not sleeping, but in an altered state. When Dennis lifted her, he saw in her eyes profound acceptance. Fear dissolved a person who understood that she is eternal, that the body is temporary, but the essence always remains. The alien said, this is the last temple before returning to Giza in the pyramid. Journey complete. Feminine healed vision, activated joy, integrated death, transcended, now ready for final initiation. And Dennis, seeing all that the complete system revealed, felt overwhelming emotion. 40 years of studying and never fully understood. He had seen fragments, but not the complete connection. And now he saw it. The whole of Egypt was a living map. Each stone, each symbol, each structure teaching, and it wasn't a dead past. It was a living present waiting for humans to remember. And then the alien said, "Do you want to experience it, Dennis? Not just see, but feel. I can take your consciousness to Giza now, to the present, to the king's chamber. It's an experience that rich tourists pay thousands for 3 minutes, but you will have it complete because you are ready. 40 years of dedication have prepared you. Do you accept?" Dennis barely had time to process the question before feeling a tug. Not physical, but more real than physical. Consciousness being ripped away through space and absolute vertigo, but different from the previous one. This was directional. He knew he was going east across the Atlantic, over the Mediterranean, descending over desert. And then he was there floating above Giza, but not seeing through the alien's memory, seeing with his own perception. And it was night, a full moon illuminating pyramids in shades of silver. And the beauty was breathtaking, even for him, who had studied this for 40 years. To see it personally, even if only consciously, was different from any photograph or video. It was presence weight magnitude that a screen never captures. The alien guided his consciousness downwards, entering not through the modern tourist entrance, but through stone, passing through as if it weren't solid, and Dennis was inside a narrow ascending corridor, the Grand Gallery, as studies called it. And even empty of tourists at that hour, the structure vibrated. He literally felt it, a constant low frequency that didn't come from sound, but from the stone itself, resonance. And the alien said 432 hertz of frequency, still active after millennia, the structural core intact. They arrived at the king's chamber, an austere rectangular room, a dark granite sarcophagus in the center, its walls devoid of decoration, unlike any other royal Egyptian tombs. And Dennis thought, because it's not a tomb, it never was. And the alien confirmed. Now you'll understand, not theoretically, but experientially. Lie down in the sarcophagus, not a physical body, obviously, but consciousness can take form. Imagine an energetic body and lie down. I'll guide the process. Dennis hesitated, part of him still skeptical despite everything he had seen. But after 40 years of frustration of being right and being ignored, this was an opportunity he would never have otherwise. So he focused, imagined a luminous body, and there it was, in ethereal form but solid enough. And he lay down in the sarcophagus, the cold granite touching his back, even though it was an energetic sensation, not a physical one. And the moment he was fully positioned, something changed drastically. The vibration, which had been subtle before, intensified exponentially, the resonance of the chamber focusing through the sarcophagus, and Dennis felt it, not imagination, but visceral sensation. Every cell of his energetic body vibrating in unison. The alien instructed telepathically, "Don't resist, allow it. Breathe even without physical lungs. The pattern I taught you, 3 short breaths, one long one, synchronized with the pyramid's frequency." Dennis tried energetic breathing, a strange concept, but his body obeyed, and with each cycle the vibration penetrated deeper, and he began to feel heat, not external, but internal, as if an invisible fire were igniting at the base of his spine. Kundalini, the alien explained, is the vital energy that most humans carry dormant. This pyramid is forcibly awakened, ascending the spinal column and activating each chakra sequentially. You will feel it intensely, but it's not pain. It's purification. Ancient memories will surface. Traumas from past lives. Let it pass. Don't cling to them. Just observe. And Dennis felt himself rising, the heat becoming almost unbearable. And with it came images not from this life, but others. Quick flashes. He was a scribe in Thebes 3,000 years ago, copying sacred texts he didn't fully understand. A frustration similar to his current life. And then another life, an even older priest participating in rituals he now recognized. He had been here before in this same chamber, not as Dennis, but as someone else. And the alien whispered, "See, you've been through this before." Cellular memory recognizes it. That's why you chose to study Egypt your whole life. It wasn't random interest, but an ancestral calling. Energy reached his heart chakra, and Dennis felt an overwhelming emotion. Not specific, but total love for everything. Compassion for all of humanity, forgiveness for the academy that had rejected him, forgiveness for himself for years of bitterness and tears that were not physical but real. A massive release of 40 years of accumulated frustration, anger, and sadness all coming out at once. And the alien said he heart-opening barrier dissolving. Now next level energy rose higher throat, then forehead. And when it reached the third eye, the center of the forehead, Dennis saw not with physical or energetic eyes, but with pure perception. He saw beyond the chamber, beyond the pyramid. He saw all of Egypt as a network of light lines connecting each temple, each sacred structure, lay lines that geologists deny, but were there shining, pulsating. And he saw further other portals around the world. Machu Picchu Stonehenge pyramids in Bosnia, temples in India, all connected a global activation network left by the Anunnaki and other ancient races. And he understood Egypt was not unique. It was part of a planetary system, but it was the nucleus, the center, the heart of the network. Energy reached the top of his head, the crown chakra, and Dennis felt dissolution, the ego that had defined his entire life. Egyptologist Dennis Reeves, with a PhD, a failed career, and deep bitterness all dissolved. He was no longer himself. He was pure consciousness, nameless, without a history, just existence. And in that state, he saw differently. He saw that every experience, every rejection, every professional failure was all preparation for this exact moment. To be here receiving knowledge that he would share with those who were ready, it was not a waste. It was design, a hidden purpose revealed. And then he returned, his ego reconstituting itself but different. Not rigid but fluid, not identified with personal history, but aware that it was only a temporary role. And when he opened his eyes, still lying in the sarcophagus, he saw differently. The chamber was no longer dead stone, but a living organism. Hieroglyphs invisible to the common eye, but visible now shining on the walls, codes of light. And he understood that they had always been there. Only his perceptive frequency was too low to capture them. Now activated, he saw a broader spectrum. He rose from the sarcophagus with a smooth movement and looked at the alien who was silently observing. Dennis said, not verbally but telepathically for the first time, "I understand now, not intellectually but completely. Egypt is not a mystery, it's a map. And I've spent my whole life studying maps without understanding what territory was inside me." The alien nodded, yes, and now that territory is activated. Not completely. This was only the first layer, like the ancient priests received, but enough to permanently change perception. When I return to my physical body in Arizona, I won't be the same man. My expanded vision remains, my abilities emerge, my rudimentary telepathy, my amplified intuition, synchronicities multiply, and most importantly, my clear purpose. Purpose, Dennis asked, an alien replied. You didn't waste your life studying Egypt. You were preparing for this moment, and now the mission truly begins. To share truth not with academia that rejects it, but with those who have ears to hear, to write, to teach, to guide others who feel the calling. You will be a bridge between ancient knowledge and modern seekers, not necessarily famous, but essential. Each person you activate through your words becomes an activator of others, a cascading effect. And Egypt awakens not only in the stones, but in the hearts of millions who will never physically set foot there, but carry its frequency internally. Dennis processed that 40 years of being ignored and now a mission to teach. The irony was almost funny, but also perfect, and he asked, will people believe me? Will they call me crazy like academia did? How do I deal with skepticism? Alien replied, don't try to convince skeptics. It's wasted energy. Speak to those who resonate. Recognition is instantaneous. Those who are ready will know your words are true because something inside them vibrates the same way. Confirmation doesn't come from external proof, but from internal resonance. And don't worry about ridicule. You've been through it and survived. Now you're strengthened, activated, immune to the opinion of those who operate at a low frequency. But what about a physical visit, Dennis asked. I still want to go now more than ever to put real feet in the sand to touch stones with physical hands. Is that still possible? Alien said, not only possible, but inevitable. Synchronicities are beginning now. Resources are emerging. Opportunities are appearing. When frequency changes, reality responds accordingly. Within a year, you will be there physically. And when you arrive, you will not be a tourist, but a returning initiate. The pyramid will recognize you. Invisible guardians will recognize you. And activation will deepen layers that only physical presence allows. This was just an appetizer. The real visit will be the full feast. Dennis felt profound gratitude not just for the experience, but for a lifetime of frustration that had prepared him, because he knew now without bitterness that if he had achieved academic success, he would have become complacent, never questioned so deeply, never been ready for this revelation. Failure was a disguise for preparation. And the alien said now, return physical body in Arizona waiting. When you wake up, it will be dawn there and you will wake up. Different integrated activation and the real work begins. Ready. Dennis nodded, yet ready, finally ready. And the alien touched his forehead again and the chamber dissolved. Egypt dissolved, consciousness being pulled back across oceans and continents. And Dennis opened his eyes in Tempe in a living room armchair. And the television was still off, but everything was different. More vivid colors, clearer sounds, and he stood up, looked at his hands that trembled slightly, and knew molecularly deep that nothing would ever be the same again. Dennis was back in Tempe, sitting in the armchair, still trembling slightly from the experience, and the alien remained materialized in the room. A soft pulsing blue light surrounding him and said, there's more you need to understand before you leave. Teachings that complete the picture, things you've experienced but need to understand intellectually as well in order to explain them to others. Ready to listen. Dennis nodded, his mind still processing but absorbing, and the alien began. The first thing humans ask when they visit Egypt, especially the pyramids and main temples, is why the feeling of having been there before, a déjà vu so strong that some cry without knowing why. Rational tourists suddenly emotionally devastated. Academia calls it psychological projection or romanticization. But the truth is different. You really have been there, Dennis. Not in this life, but in others. How so? Dennis asked, and the alien explained. When Sumeria was destroyed by a flood 13,000 years ago, the Anunnaki chose thousands of humans who had worked with them. Scribes, builders, priests, those who demonstrated ability and loyalty, and reincarnated these souls in the Nile Valley, not randomly, but intentionally allowing the same consciousnesses to continue work in a new location building, Egypt, keeping knowledge alive. And many of these souls continue to reincarnate to this day, especially now in the age of reawakening. And when they visit Egypt, cellular memory recognizes it. It's not imagination. It's a real memory spanning lifetimes. Hence the spontaneous crying, hence the feeling of returning home, because they are literally returning. Ah, and those who never went, Dennis said, but feel a deep calling like I felt my whole life. Alien replied the same explanation. You worked on the construction of Dendarian life 200 years ago. You were an assistant architect, not Anunnaki, but a human trained by them. And you chose to study Egypt in this life, not by chance, but by unconscious memory. The soul remembering even when the ego forgets, and when you finally go physically, the recognition will be overwhelming. I guarantee you. Dennis felt a chill. Everything made sense in a way that conventional explanations never could. And the alien continued. Second crucial thing, understand why the Anunnaki chose stone, why they built on such a massive scale when they could have taught and left. The reason is permanence. They knew that civilizations rise and fall, libraries burn scrolls, rot oral knowledge distorts through generations. But stone, especially blockers weighing 50 to 200 tons, survives everything. Wars, earthquakes, millennia of neglect. Egypt is humanity's backup server. Spiritual hardware when software fails. The Library of Alexandria, Dennis said, was connected. It burned and we lost everything. But the pyramids remained. Alien confirmed exactly. And it wasn't an accident. It was intentional design, the most crucial knowledge encoded not in fragile texts, but in geometry, proportions, alignments that cannot be burned or distorted. Stone doesn't lie. It doesn't change. It just patiently waits for humans to learn to read again. And now, with modern technology, laser scanning, computational analysis, you are beginning to see what has always been there. Impossible mathematics, precise astronomical alignments, engineered acoustics, all intentional. And regarding symptoms, Dennis said, when visitors enter pyramids or temples and feel strange things, dizziness, heat, intense emotions, what exactly is that? Alien explained in detail that it's not psychological. Although academia dismisses it as such, it's a real activation happening. Vertigo is an altered magnetic field of the structure, realigning chakras, especially the fifth and sixth throat and third eye. The body isn't used to it, so it interprets it as an imbalance, but it's just recalibration. Intense heat, especially at the base of the spine or center of the chest, is kundalini, activating vital energy, awakening, even if temporarily. Spontaneous crying is the emotional release of traumas from current and past lives. The structure literally expels energy density like squeezing a dirty sponge. Murky water comes out. Lightness or euphoria afterward is a temporarily elevated frequency. The person literally vibrated higher for minutes or hours, a taste of the fifth dimension. And a few, the very sensitive or already partially activated, experience an expansion of consciousness. Sea beings of light, Anunnaki, in energetic form, still guarding temples or have profound insights into their life mission. All real, not hallucinations. That's why so many return transformed. Dennis said even without understanding what happened. Alien confirmed it, yes, and most don't understand attributing it to vacations or cultural experiences. But the change is energetic. DNA begins to activate, and life afterward is never entirely the same. Synchronicities increase, intuition strengthens, interest in spirituality grows. Egypt functions even operating at 20% of its original capacity. Imagine when the cladding is restored and the capstones replaced. It would return to 100%. It would be a literal rebirth of a golden age. Dennis hesitated, then asked what had been bothering him for years. Why academia resists any alternative theory so fiercely? It's not just scientific conservatism. It seems like active, purposeful suppression. Why Alien answered carefully, because truth liberates and established power, not just academic, but governmental, religious, corporate, all depend on humanity remaining partially asleep, controllable. A human who knows they are eternal doesn't fear death, so they don't obey threats. A human who knows they can heal themselves doesn't depend on a billion-dollar medical industry. A human who knows they can manifest abundance isn't a slave to an economic system based on artificial scarcity. A human who knows they have inner divine power doesn't need religious institutions as intermediaries. Therefore, the knowledge that Egypt preserves is dangerous to the status quo, not dangerous to humanity, but to control structures. They know Dennis asked the government, the Vatican, the elite. Do they know the truth about Egypt? Alien said some know not all. There are secret societies that have kept Anunnaki knowledge through millennia. High-level Freemasons, Rosicrucian Hermetic orders. They study Egyptian symbols because they recognize real power there. But most keep it selfishly, using it for their own benefit, not collective elevation. And governments, especially those that control archaeological sites, suppress discoveries that contradict the official narrative. The chamber under the Sphinx, for example, they know it's there. Ground-penetrating radar confirmed it decades ago, but they don't open it because the content would destroy established history force, a rewriting of everything, and that creates chaos that the elite don't want to manage. But it's changing, Dennis said, sensing hope, the internet information flowing freely. Alien confirmed, yes, the era of secrets is ending, which is why we're returning, now facilitating the awakening of those who are ready. And Egypt is at the center of this awakening, not just physically, but symbolically. And there are 5 central truths that Egypt teaches encoded in everything you need to understand in order to teach correctly. Which ones? Dennis asked, leaning forward, and the alien enumerated them. First truth, humans are not physical bodies. They are eternal consciousness inhabiting a body temporarily. Death is an illusion, a change of form, not the end of existence. That's why a sarcophagus is not a tomb, but a womb of rebirth. Second truth, reality is created by the mind. Thoughts and emotions manifest physical experience. The law of attraction is not a modern invention, but ancient Anunnaki knowledge that Egypt preserved. Third truth, humans have divine origins. DNA contains Anunnaki genes. You are literally a child of God, not a metaphor, but genetics, a hybrid of terrestrial primate and star visitor. Fourth truth, power is within, not without. Every human can heal, manifest, create through elevated consciousness. No intermediaries are needed. You are a temple. You are a pyramid. External structures only reflect internal potential. Fifth truth, evolution is not an accident, but design. Humanity is on a journey back to its origin, a collective awakening happening now, and Egypt is the map of this return. From the material to the spiritual, from sleep to awakening, from forgetfulness to remembrance. Dennis absorbed that 5 truths that academia would call heresy, but that resonated as profound truth. And the alien continued. And last but most important thing, Dennis' physical Egypt is a mirror of the inner journey that every soul must make. Understand this viscerally now after the experience in the chamber. You don't need to travel to Egypt to awaken, but going there accelerates exponentially because structures still function. Energy still pulsates, and the physical body being present allows activation on layers that astral projection cannot reach. So yes, go when you can, and it will be soon, I guarantee you. But in the meantime, and for those who can never go financially, it teaches that true Egypt lives within. Pyramids symbolize their awakening, a wide material base ascending to a fine spiritual summit, a journey each one undertakes internally. The Sphinx is the guardian of their self-mastery, taming the inner lion with human consciousness. The Nile is the flow of their life, constant emotional purification, washing away the past and being reborn. Temples are healing stations for their souls, each releasing a specific layer of pain. And when they understand this, they can build an inner Egypt through meditation, visualization, the study of symbols, the practice of principles. External travel becomes confirmation, not a necessity, a bonus, not a requirement. Knowledge is democratized, not just for the rich who can travel, but for anyone with sincerity and dedication. Dennis felt a sense of completeness, a complete teaching received, and asked, so my mission is to share this, to write, to teach, to guide those who feel called to inner and outer Egypt. Alien confirmed, yes, you will be a bridge, not unique but essential. Each activated individual becomes an activator of others. The network growing exponentially, and Egypt awakens not only in stones but in the hearts of millions globally, reawakening Anunnaki knowledge for the modern era. Not repeating the past, but integrating ancient wisdom with contemporary understanding, a synthesis that creates the next evolutionary stage. And you, Dennis, after 40 years of preparation through frustration and rejection, are perfectly positioned to facilitate this not wasted but perfect design. Do you understand now? Dennis understood completely, and gratitude overwhelmed him, not only for tonight's experience, but for a lifetime that had prepared him. He knew the moment for the alien to leave was approaching. The final phase of this impossible journey would begin a return to a normal life that would never be normal again, carrying knowledge that would change everything for those who were ready to hear it. The blue light surrounding the alien intensified, pulsing faster, and Dennis knew that farewell had come. He quickly asked, "Will you return? Can I contact you if I have questions while teaching?" The alien shook its head. "I won't return. A single intervention was sufficient, but you don't need me. The knowledge is integrated now. And when doubts arise, meditate. Connect with your inner Egypt. Answers will come from within, not from an external source, and other activated beings will appear. A community will form naturally. You are not alone on this mission." And the physical visit to Egypt, Dennis asked. "You said it would be inevitable," when Alien replied. "Within 8 months, synchronicity will bring opportunity. Resources will appear unexpectedly. An invitation will arise. Pay attention to the signs. And when it is, don't go as a tourist. Go as a returning initiate. Spend 3 days in Giza. Enter the king's chamber at dawn. Lie in the sarcophagus physically. The experience will be 10 times deeper than this projection. Complete activation of the second layer will happen. Then visit temples in the order I showed. A complete healing journey and return transformed beyond recognition." Dennis felt a strange certainty, not hope but knowledge that it would happen exactly as the alien had said. And he asked, "Thank you for appearing, for showing up, for trusting me after a lifetime of rejection. This means more than I can express." The alien nodded, "Gratitude unnecessary. You prepared yourself through decades of unrewarded dedication. This demonstrated character merit not through words but through actions. And now you share it not with the arrogance of someone who knows everything, but with the humility of someone who has experienced something. A witness, not a guru. This is perfect. The Anunnaki would approve." And with that light enveloped the alien completely, its form dissolving. And in seconds it was no longer there, vanished as it had appeared. And Dennis was left alone in the room in Tempe, the clock showing 4 in the morning. The entire night had passed in what seemed like minutes, and he stood up, his legs steady despite the extraordinary experience, and looked at the bookshelf on Egypt. 40 years of study and now finally understanding. The following days were strange. Dennis expected to question his own sanity, but no. The experience remained solid real, and the changes were undeniable. He woke up knowing things he didn't know before, not intellectually but intuitively. He looked at hieroglyphs in books, and the meaning came instantly, not an academic translation but an energetic essence. And one morning, writing in his journal about the experience, he felt an impulse to share it, not keep it to himself, and created a simple blog, Rediscovering Egypt, and wrote his first post, not about aliens, because that would sound insane, but about the real purpose of the pyramid's activation technology, not tombs, and posted it without expectation. 3 days later, 20 emails, people from different places, all saying versions of the same thing. "I always knew there was more. Thank you for confirming. Do you have more information? Can you teach?" And Dennis realized Alien was right. The Ready recognized truth immediately. Resonance doesn't need proof. And he started responding, writing more, creating simple videos, explaining symbols, temples, initiatory journey, and a small but dedicated community formed. 50 people, then 100. Not viral, but organic growth based on sincerity, not marketing. 6 months after the encounter, Dennis was on a video call with a group of 12 people discussing the symbolism of Hathor. And someone mentioned, "I'm organizing a pilgrimage to Egypt, small group 3 weeks visiting the main temples, if anyone wants to join." And Dennis felt this is the sign. He asked for details. The cost was exactly what he had saved from a recent unexpected consultation. Perfect timing. And 8 months after the alien prediction, he was on a plane to Cairo. Finally, after a lifetime going to a place he had studied, but never seen. And when the plane landed, when he set foot on Egyptian soil for the first time, the recognition was immediate, visceral, not a tourist arriving, but a son returning home. And in the following days, visiting Giza, entering the Great Pyramid, touching the walls with his physical hands, the emotion was overwhelming cellular memory, fully awakening. And when he lay in the sarcophagus of the king's chamber at dawn on the third day, the experience that the alien had promised happened, a profound activation, a second layer unlocking, and he emerged transformed. No longer the man he was, but the man he was destined to become. A bridge between ancient knowledge and modern seekers. A clear mission and unwavering purpose. 2 years after that impossible encounter, Dennis stood inside the Temple of Karnak at sunset, guiding a group of 20 seekers through the initiatory journey that the alien had shown him. And while explaining the symbolism of the columns representing the gradual ascension of consciousness, he saw in their eyes what the alien had seen in him. Recognition resonance, people ready to remember what they had always known but forgotten. And now, months after I began writing this story, I want to speak directly to you, the viewer. Because if you've made it this far, if Dennis's story has resonated with you, if you look at pyramids and know deep down that they aren't tombs, if you feel an inexplicable calling to Egypt, even though you've never been, then you too carry ancestral memory. You too worked with the Anunnaki in past lives. You too are being called to awaken. Now, if this story has awakened something deep within you, if you've realized that a true journey is not external, but internal, if you're ready to build your own inner Egypt, the book Reconnecting with Your Divine Essence. For those who are ready for looking inward, instead of searching outside, discovering that all the answers, all the power, all the wisdom already reside within you, waiting to be accessed, reconnecting with forgotten divine essence, an eternal core beyond temporary identities, traumas, and conditioning that obscure who one truly is. Break through the veil of illusion that separates you from your truth-dissolving layers of programming that made you forget your divine nature. Establish a direct connection with the Creator, not through intermediaries or external dogmas, but through the divinity that has always existed within dissolving, deeply ingrained limiting beliefs that keep you small, dependent, disconnected from your unlimited inner potential. The book is available in the first comment pinned below the video. Every week, we share stories that go beyond. Leave a comment. Do you feel like you've been to Egypt in past lives? What activation symptoms have you experienced in sacred places? If you enjoyed this story, you can support our channel by becoming a member or leaving a thanks a lot comment. Each support allows us to continue revealing hidden truths. Remember, you are not here by chance. Something in this story was meant for you, specifically for you. Perhaps the confirmation he was looking for. Perhaps the calling he finally heard. Or perhaps it's just the seed planted today that will germinate tomorrow. It doesn't matter what happened. What matters is that you made it this far, and that's all. Until the next story.